Dr. Rupali Basu, CEO and Managing Hospital, Ms. Kiran Uttam, nationally acclaimed fashion designer, and I'm very Seema Sapruman, principal we should start the program with lighting of the ceremony. Mr. Prabir Roy, Mr. Vasu Sartavi,
ॐ सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः या कुन्देन्दु तुषारहार धवला या शुभ्र वस्त्रावृता या वीणा वरदण्डमण्डितकरा या श्वेत पद्मासना या ब्रह्माच्युत शङ्कर प्रभृतिभिः देवैः सदा वन्दित श्यामां पातु सरस्वती भगवती निशेष जाड्यापहा निशेष जाड्यापहा निशेष जाड्यापहा।
Thank you so much, madam. We now invite Mr. Pradeep Agarwalji, CEO, Heritage Group of Institutions, to kindly address the humble gathering.
Thank you. Respected dignitaries on the dais, trustees present, principals of all the institutions, faculty and other members, well-wishers, and my dear students. Very good morning to all of you. Today is a great day for Heritage as we are talking about the gender equity. As our institutions are more focused on the climate crisis and disaster risk reduction this year, which is one of the greatest global challenges of 21st century. We should talk about gender equity in this context. I think we should empower men, we should empower women and girls to have a voice and to be equal players in decision making related to climate change and sustainability. We are trying to provide such opportunities at Heritage, where gender issue is more or less 50-50 across all heritage institutions. And girls are more, even 70% in case of some of the discipline like biotechnology and law. Heritage students are becoming topper in all disciplines, whether in academics, co-curricular, or other activities on national level and international level. Today is also a very proud moment for Heritage, as last evening, our chairman of Heritage Institute of Technology got conferred one of the highest civilian award, Padma Shri, by Honorable President of India at the President House. On this International Women's Day, let's claim gender equity today for a sustainable tomorrow. Thank you everyone for joining us today.
Thank you so much, sir. May I now request Professor Dr. Bashab Chaudhary, Principal, Heritage Institutes of Technology, to deliver his kind address to this august gathering.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Very distinguished panelists are here today to discuss on the subject gender equality today for a sustainable tomorrow. We have as panelists Madam Rowan Ainsworth, Consul General of, Miss Rowan Ainsworth, Consul General of France, Dr. Rupali Basu from Woodlands Hospital, Madam Kiranuttam Ghosh, an internationally known designer, our own Madam Seema Sapru, Principal of the Heritage School, Dr. Madhupa Bakshi, Dean of Media Science, all the distinguished trustees, professors of this institute, and dear students. At the very outset, greetings to all of you. We are here today to celebrate the success of women in different fields of human civilization. And I am so pleased to see my dear lady students today, so many of them aspiring to become engineers and professionals in a few years. We are privileged to have Consul General of France in our campus today, and also a renowned doctor, a renowned designer, and an educationist of repute speaking to us today about gender issues. As it is said, the road to success is always under construction, and an attempt to achieve gender equity and equality likewise reinforces the commitment of the global society to establish firmly the idea of gender equality everywhere. All of you will be pleased to know that for the first time in the year 2021, the female to male ratio is 1020-2000, 1020 to 1000 in India, and it is a matter of celebration for India where female feticide is still practiced. If I quickly run through the years, the year 1829 was the year when the sati was abolished. All of you know the widows were being burnt at that point of time, when Lord Bentinck's help, with the help of Ram Mohan Rai and others, could stop the sati. The first widow marriage took place in the year 1856 in the month of December. The first lady graduates came out of the University of Calcutta in the year 1884. All of you know that Kadambini Ganguly was a doctor and Chandramukhi Basu was the principal of the Bethune College, and that was in the year 1884. Marie Curie got Nobel Prize in the year 1903 and 1911. And Pradeepji has talked about the climate change. The whole issue of climate change was brought to the surface, was brought to the focus by none other than Rachel Carson through her book, The Silent Spring, in the year 1960. And the road to success is on and on and on. What is the agenda today? Are we free from all our biases? How is our sight? Is it just and beautiful? That is the question that will be asked today. We'll hear from our panelists and get enlightened. As a bird cannot fly on one wing, society cannot prosper without equal participation and respectful handholding of men and women in a global society. This was said by none other than Swami Vivekananda. As I celebrate the success of women and pay my respect to women, I remember respectfully my grandmother, my mother, my sister, my wife, my daughter, and my friends, without whom I am incomplete. Ladies and gentlemen, cheers to all of you men and women. But for today, little more to my ma and bone, mothers and sisters and friends, those persons who are full of empathy. Before I end, I would like to say that respected Mr. Didier Telpine, Consul General of, yes, am I correct? Okay. Mr. Rowan, no, Mr. Didier Telpine, Consul General of France, right? Yeah, please take your seat. He has joined with us today. He has joined us, and I am greeting him, and I am paying my respect on behalf of the Heritage Institute of Technology. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. We welcome you, Monsieur Talpa. May I now request Mrs. Meenakshi Chaudhary, representing Mr. H.K. Chaudhary, Chairman, Kalyan Bharti Trust, and Professor K.K. Chaudhary, Director, Heritage Business School, to felicitate Ms. Rowan Ainsworth, Consul General of Australia. Thank you so much. I request Mr. Pradeep Agarwalji, CEO, Heritage Group of Institutions, and Professor Dr. Bashap Chaudhary, Principal, Heritage Institute of Technology, to felicitate Monsieur Didier Talpin, Consul General of France. Thank you, sir. I now request Mr. Prabir Roy, Director, Kalyan Bharti Trust, and Professor Amitabh Ghosh, Teacher in Charge, the Heritage College, to kindly felicitate Dr. Rupali Basu, Managing Director and CEO, Woodlands Multi-Speciality Hospital. Thank you so much. Oh, sir, Amitabh sir. Thank you. May I now request Professor Gaur Banerjee, Principal, the Heritage Academy, and Mr. Pradeep Agarwalji, CEO, Heritage Group of Institutions, to felicitate Ms. Kiran Uttam Ghosh. Thank you. I now request Dr. Madhupa Bakshi, Dean, Department of Media Science, the Heritage Academy, to felicitate Mrs. Seema Sapru, Principal, the Heritage School. And I also request Mrs. Seema Sapru to felicitate the moderator for the panel discussion, Dr. Madhupa Bakshi. Thank you, ma'am. Today, as the Heritage Group of Institutions celebrates International Women's Day, the theme for the day is Gender Equality Today for a Sustainable Tomorrow, keeping in sync with the theme of UN Women in 2022, recognizing the contribution of women and girls around the world who are leading the charge on climate change adaptation, mitigation, and response to build a more sustainable future for all. Gender equality is not only a basic human right, but its achievement has enormous socio-economic ramifications. Empowering women fuels thriving economies, spurring productivity and growth. Yet, gender inequalities remain deeply entrenched in every society. Women lack access to decent work and face occupational segregation and gender wage gaps. They are too often denied access to basic education and healthcare. Women in all parts of the world suffer violence and discrimination. They are underrepresented in political and economic decision-making processes. In today's world, eliminating gender-based violence is a priority. Unpaid and domestic work needs to be recognized and valued. Laws need to be made more equitable and anti-discriminatory. It must be ensured that women have complete and effective participation and opportunities in leadership across sectors and levels of decision-making. Also, it must be ensured that all women and girls around the world have rights and access to reproductive health. As Mr. Kofi Annan has said, gender equality is more than a goal in itself. It is a precondition for meeting the challenge of reducing poverty, promoting sustainable development, and building good governance. Before we dive into the panel discussion on the topic, we would like to hear some opening remarks on the theme from our panelists. I request Ms. Rowan Ainsworth, Consul General of Australia, to deliver her opening remarks about the topic, sustainability and women empowerment, to the inquisitive gathering. Ms. Ainsworth is a career officer with the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade and was most recently political counselor at the Australian Embassy in Paris. She has held many high offices in Australia. As Consul General in Kolkata, Ms. Ainsworth is supporting Australia's expanding trade, commercial and investment interests in the eastern and northeast Indian states of West Bengal, Assam, Orissa, Bihar, amongst many others. Madam, please, I invite you to take the podium.
Thank you very much for the invitation to be here today to mark International Women's Day. One of the themes for the discussion today, as you've just heard, is sustainability and women's empowerment. I have interpreted that theme slightly differently. as I might have mentioned, because I have been speaking a lot on women over the last 2 weeks, I do not think it is sustainable to continue marking International Women's Day. I do not want to mark International Women's Day. I will celebrate the day that International Women's Day is completely irrelevant. When women are paid equally, when we do not suffer harassment, when we are recognized for ourselves, when we have access to finance and capital, when we have a voice. But in the meantime, gender equality continues to be a priority for the Australian government's international engagement. We're committed to advancing Australia's reputation as a global leader on gender equality and women's empowerment. We pursue gender equality as a core value. And our Foreign Minister is also Australia's Minister for Women. And why do we do this? Because gender equality is a human right, and respecting human rights and freedoms makes the world safer, secure, and more prosperous. Some statistics which underline my point about equality. Of the 1.3 billion people in the world who live in poverty, 70% are women and girls. And although women produce over 50% of the world's food, they own less than 10% of the land. So economic empowerment is a crucial topic for women around the world. The evidence shows that increasing women's participation in the economy strengthens economic growth. Economically empowered women have more control over their lives and are able to participate with influence in political, social, family, and community life. And I think we can all agree it increases the well-being of families and communities. The Sustainable Development Goals recognize that gender inequality undermines sustainable development and poverty reduction efforts. Our goal is to ensure that both men and women can equally access productive assets, credit, financial services, markets, and participate safely in the formal workplace with fair and equal remuneration, as well as participate in family life and care responsibilities. Involving all members of our society such that everyone has a chance to succeed is crucial, not only to their success, but to the success of our country's economies. But for women to succeed, they need skills and capacity and institutional support. So what is Australia doing about that? Well, we're taking actions both internally and externally. Overseas, Australian Development Assistance supports programs that promote gender equality and women's economic empowerment. And individual posts, such as the Australian Consulate General in Kolkata, have what we call our Direct Aid Program, or DAP. And here in Kolkata, our DAP programs are heavily targeting women, both equipping women with business skills and supporting entrepreneurship. And working positively to change perceptions of women's role in the economy and men's role at home is also an important factor. As we all know, social and cultural norms further restrict women's participation in the economy. And internally, my ministry, the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, is putting into practice changes to our own workplace to improve women's advancement. The strategy's goal is a workplace which maximizes performance and capability by enabling all genders to thrive equally. And how are we doing that? We've introduced some wide-ranging changes, such as part-time and flexible work for everyone to allow parents to fulfill childcare duties, gender targets for recruitment of senior executives, the introduction of unconscious bias training and embedding inclusive leadership practices in everyday work. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about each of these topics, if I may. So we've seen a boom in part-time and flexible work because of COVID, and employees around the world have shown that it might not be perfect for every circumstances, but it can work in a lot of circumstances. Wouldn't it be great if out of this whole terrible pandemic, some positive changes were made and employers recognize the value of the flexible workplace? One of the goals of more flexible work is to ensure that men as well as women have the opportunity to be parents, that fathers can take on those responsibilities by giving men paternity leave. And I would go further and I would say obliging men to take paternity leave. Women's careers often suffer due to gaps because of child rearing in their resumes. Paternity leave might not be the perfect solution, but it will help even out the picture somewhat. And some Northern European countries have embraced this concept, and the men who benefit from it, not only, I dare say, have appreciated the opportunity, but I'm sure have learned to respect what it means to look after small children all day, because that is hard work. Next, gender targets. Now, I know what you're thinking. Shouldn't employment and advancement in employment be based solely on merit? And that's a fair point. I will just mention to you an argument put to me by my husband when we were having such a discussion. He said, "You work in a large organization. Look around you. How many incompetent men do you see? Plenty." Who got those permissions? On merit. So merit is subjective. There is no reason to think that choosing to employ or promote a woman based on targets is going to give any worse outcomes in your organization than you already have, because merit means different things to different people. That brings me to unconscious bias, which may play a role in merit promotions. Breaking unconscious biases is more difficult than we may think. After one talk I gave recently on women's empowerment, a well-meaning gentleman told me that women don't push themselves forward enough. So essentially, it's your fault, ladies. The idea that women don't assert themselves, they need to lean in, as Sheryl Sandberg would have it. Well, there's nothing wrong with doing that. There's nothing wrong with being assertive or leading in, but for me, again, not a sustainable concept. The day that women are accepted as they are, perhaps quiet and thoughtful, deliberative, perhaps assertive, emotional or intuitive, that is the day I will celebrate. And I know I've mentioned this before, but my favorite story about unconscious bias relates to a study about the cognitive differences between boys and girls, which was done admittedly quite a few years ago now, that the researchers gave the babies an impossible task to do, and they recorded their reactions. They observed that there were differences in approach between the boys and the girls. The boys, they observed, persevered. They tried harder. They refused to give up, even though the task was impossible. While the girls gave up easily, got frustrated, got distracted. To me, that says a lot, not about the cognitive differences between babies, but about the researchers' biases, unconscious biases in the way they evaluated the results. Why did the researchers not say that the girls recognized more quickly that the task was futile and moved on while the boys hit their heads against a brick wall? It's because the researchers' unconscious biases wanted to give a positive evaluation of the boys and a negative evaluation of the girls. Lastly, embedding inclusive leadership practices in work every day. In my ministry, we're evaluated on our inclusive leadership. Our performance agreements are tied to those targets. So these are questions I am asking myself about my workplace. Do I have an equal employment opportunities policy? Do I have policies which prevent harassment in the workplace? If yes, then crucially, how are they being applied? Am I following up on implementation? Am I checking the outcomes and adjusting the policies if need be? If I don't have women in management positions, I should be asking myself, why is that? And what can I do about it? Through an implementation check of our women in leadership commitments, I realized I'm not doing enough for our current staff in terms of training, giving our women and men the tools to go on to bigger and better things. I have been found wanting, and I am determined to rectify that. So I would like to ask you all the same hard questions. In your organizations, are staff able to participate and progress commensurate with their talent and aspirations? And do they feel valued and inspired to do their best? Is your organization breaking down the barriers which hold women back in the workplace? Is it free of harassment? And how do you determine whether it is or not? I'm aiming to embed equality, knowing that new, more productive and sustainable ways of working will deliver organizational outcomes for me. Thank you very much for inviting me today.
Thank you, Madam, for bringing out different facets of this challenging topic. Now I invite Monsieur Didier Talpin, Consul General of France, to give his opening remarks on the topic, the culture industry and how men can be part of this equation. Monsieur Talpin joined the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs in 1989. After a first position at the North African desk, he joined the cabinet of the Minister of Human Rights and Humanitarian Action as technical advisor for human rights. He is appointed Deputy Director of the Financial Department of the Ministry in 2013 and later assumed the position of Consul General of France in Karachi in 2018. Sir, kindly address this curious audience. Thank you, sir.
Dear friends, I will perform today something different, not mainly underlining all what France did, will do, should do, promoting women's rights. I will do something different because you gave me an interesting topic, which reads the culture industry and how men can be part of the equation. To be honest, I changed the topic, which is normally when you go to take an examination, you've not the right of changing the topic, but as it is not really an examination I take today, I change it and I propose to you a few words about the beginning is the same, the culture industry and how, and then women became slowly part of the equation. As some of you may know, I'm a diplomat, that's true, but I'm as well a man of culture. I'm a professional musician in the classical field, and I've been for many years an administrator of festival, either contemporary dance, cinema, opera, music, etc., etc. So I propose you to make a small journey, in the cultural sector, in the cultural world, through my experience and give you some remark, and probably the conclusion will be a little bit different from what you are expecting. So primarily, cultural industry as a whole mean two things, or englobes two kind of people. The performers, of course, we need artists, and the administrators, those who organize the thing, who make that artist will be on the stage or on the screen the very day and the very time. Let's see both categories one after the other. I will concentrate on Europe and Western world, of course, because this is the place I'm coming from, but I think it's easy to make some transposition. First category, the performers. You know, it was a time when women could not perform on the stage. They were automatically or quasi-automatically called prostitutes by doing that. Then progressively the mentality evolved, you know, but very progressively. The same, you know, how church was important in Western Europe, you know. Of course, it was mainly Christianity, Catholic Church. And in the Roman Catholic Church, women's singing part, women were not allowed, you know, to sing, you know, in the choirs. So the voice of women were all the time till the 19th century replaced by the boys, girls. Because as you know, before teenage, so when the voice transformed, okay, but before teenage, the voice of boys equals, you know, in a question of frequency, the voices of women. Same on the opera stage, you know. Opera is a form of culture which was which is still very popular. It was somehow invented in the very beginning of the 17th century, you know, in Italy. But at that time, it was still a problem with women as an artist. So if you perform an opera, you know, usually an opera is somehow the representation of the normal life, you know, and in a normal life, you have men and women. This is a small problem. So if you don't let them access to the stage, what can you do? They found, our ancestor, a trick, you know. They took men, and before, you know, they were changing the voice and the teenage, they did, let's call it some operation, chirurgical, in order that this man remain all the life with the high voice. This was called the castrato. And you know, of course, the word itself is very, let's say, obvious of what happened. And then, so the men were dressed, you know, on an opera stage. They were singing the female parts, the female roles, with a voice which has exactly, through this operation, the range of a woman voice. Slowly, the things changes, roughly, let's say, by the end of the 18th century. Because once again, you know, women took somehow the lead. And you know that in Western world in general, a very important moment was what we call the French Revolution. It started in French and then it was widespread, you know, in some other country. It was really a sort of paradigm change. Nothing would be the same before and after. But of course, this French Revolution started, you know, in the brains years and years before, and the preeminent role was played by what we call French philosophers, you know, Rousseau, Voltaire are maybe the two most famous names. But what is not so well known is that women played a very, very important role, because some of them, some aristocratic women, they organized what we called salon littéraire, literary salon. So they invited, you know, this philosopher plus some other friends, men, women, and they were heavily discussing about, you know, the new ideas of freedom, the new system which could be, which should be implemented. This is exactly what we call the Enlightenment period. And believe me, women played really a big role in the Enlightenment period. Then in the 19th century, so slowly the paradigm changed, and even on the stage and even in churches, you know, now women could appear as women, and the role of women could finally be sung by women. Just to give you an example, the last roars of castrato, you can find them in some Rossini opera. Rossini is the beginning of the 19th century. So you see, just after 10, 20 years after the French Revolution, after the new ideas have been implemented, then the things became to be, let's say, normal. And we can say at that moment, men act as men, women act as women, and this is very good. Now to finish this paragraph on performers, I will give you a current example. If there is a vacant place in an orchestra, then there is a competition, open to all, if you play the flute, the horn, the oboe, the whatever, and there is a vacant place of flute, of horn, of whatever, there is a competition. Then you apply, okay, and then you come. This is normal, like every audition. But what you have to know is that usually, normally, it's the rule. The performing, let's say, presentation is done behind a curtain. It means that the members of the jury should not know who plays and should not know if it's a lady, if it's a man, if it's a woman, if it's etc., etc. This is normally impossible to know. And this, of course, is very good, because now you judge only, it's a blind testing, and now you have to give the note just according to what you listen and not to what you see first, or what you know. For example, yes, okay, but if we engage a woman, maybe she will be pregnant in 1 month, 2 months, 2 years, 3 years, and another time, etc. It will be for administrator a big mess. So no, it's behind curtain, and then the decision is neutral. The second category, of people are administrator, in the cultural world, those who make the machine run. We can do, the parallel is more or less the same, we can see that, for example, in France, the first time a woman was leading a theater group, really leading, was at the end of the 18th century. And now, after, again, probably it was a little bit less rapid, but okay, now it's totally women, as administrators are totally fully recognized, partly because they have a different approach, of the world, a different sensibility. And, if you work in the artistic sector, in the cultural field, the relation between people are a little bit different, in comparison with what they are in the, let's say, other sectors of the life. Probably because in the cultural sector, people express, people, all men and women, more egos, It's really, because all of them feel an artist, feel, okay, which is the case. But then this leads sometimes to battles of egos and this kind of things. And in this kind of battles, fighting, the woman sensibility, and I'm speaking of administrative stuff, is useful, because they have, everybody knows, they have something different, they feel the things different, they feel the word different, and sometimes this is a very good thing, to make, let's say, this fighting going down. So, as a conclusion of, let's say, this very, very brief essay about women and culture through the century, in my word, I would say, this, I would take this Latin quotation we like in French, Latin quotation, which is spiritus urbi vult spirat, which means the spirit blows when or where it wants. I think so is it the same with talent. Talent blows where and when it wants. Either it is through a male or through a female medium. So my conclusion would be, all other sectors of the life should take example on the cultural sector. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for bringing out awareness on this topic, sir. I now call upon Dr. Rupali Basu, Managing Director and CEO, Woodlands Multi-Speciality Hospital, to share a few opening words on the topic, the health industry and women empowerment. Dr. Basu is an expert in the healthcare industry. She is known for her pioneering work in bringing quality systems and accreditation in healthcare in India. She sits on the boards of directors of numerous companies and leads several committees for facilitating business and economy. An exemplary leader in the healthcare sector, she is known for her profound knowledge, strong connectivity with people, incremental vision, charisma, and versatility. Madam, please take the podium to address the audience.
Dignitaries on the dais, respected faculty and guests, dear students of the Heritage Group of Institutions, a very good morning. It gives me immense pleasure to be here at this beautiful campus and share my thoughts with you as a part of the International Women's Day celebrations. Empowerment of women is a subject of much deliberation for some time now, and probably just as well, because on the ground, especially in a huge country like ours, there is still huge discrepancy, and you can never overstate the importance of such discourse to generate awareness and to act thereafter. On the topic of empowerment and gender equality, let me briefly take you through some of my own life experiences, which I'm sure has stood me in good stead. For me and my siblings, 3 sisters, 2 brothers, the education of equality of genders began without us even realizing it because of the way we were brought up. My mother, a classical singer, my father, an engineer, were both strong personalities. They were kind and fair. Our childhood was full of song, recitation, music, dance, plays, along with academics and sports. Growing up in Durgapur, the steel city, I would cycle to school. I would never be worried if I was making an alpona at school and the daylight was fading outside. Me and my brother learned to drive Lambretta, the family two-wheeler of those days, and then the Ambassador, the family car, together, same opportunity. The importance of financial independence was explicitly explained very early, irrespective of whether we were a boy or a girl. From college onwards, mollycoddling was a thing of the past. No more living a sheltered and protected life. My eldest sister, who got through engineering in RE College, Durgapur, in the same town, went and lived in the hostel. It was natural in that environment for me to also want to be an independent soul. By the time it was my turn, I was more than ready to come to Kolkata and study medicine here in RG Kar Medical College, Calcutta. Empowerment in my case thus happened as a continuous process. Later on, in the healthcare industry where I work and I belong, thankfully, the scope to do for women came naturally, as there are a lot of women. 50% men versus women in hospitals. At Woodlands, by policy, we practice gender equality. Recruitment, no gender bias. Salary scales, same. Promotions, benefits, opportunities, absolutely the same. Economic independence or earning money is obviously tough for everyone, men and women. And for a woman, even harder. But she has the capacity to do it. She can train her mind to do it. Mind to it. Her physical strength may be less, but she manages the Durga act every day of her life. Give her the opportunity, the rights, the responsibilities thereafter, the respect, the honor, she will do her best. She will soar to become equal or even better. Can we all have a round of applause for all the women? We really don't need to be same. We are different, but we want equality, and we are equal. We can be even better. Thank you all very much for having me. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for bringing out awareness on this topic. I now request Ms. Kiranuttam Ghosh, a renowned international fashion designer, to give her opening comments on the topic, the fashion industry and women empowerment. Ms. Kiranuttam Ghosh is a designer who has defied categorization. She has been a part of the Indian Fashion Week since its inception year in 2000, and she has also presented her collection at Rome Couture Week and Singapore Fashion Week, amongst numerous others. She is trained with British designer Jasper Condren in London, and her ensembles have been worn by various Indian and international celebrities. Madam, it is a pleasure to have you with us. You may please take the podium.
Good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me here. If you met me in school, I would be the last person you would expect to be standing and speaking here. I was a very shy, average student, so average that most of my teachers couldn't remember me when I was invited back to school to give a talk to the students on how to create and sustain a successful career. Ironically, my chemistry teacher from class 8 was felicitating me and mentioned how proud she was that a student from Loreto had done well, etc., etc. I couldn't help but remind her that I had been in her class and she had thrown my chemistry notes at me saying, if you aren't good at chemistry, you will do nothing with your life, and chucked me out of class. Well, while I understand chemistry between people, I still don't understand very much of chemistry, the subject. The point here is, you don't have to be bookish bright or mugpot bright or genetically bright to be a fairly successful, empowered woman. And if I can do it, anyone can. So I was a Mills and Boon junkie. I used to read them back to back. My mother's relatives would tell her, is your daughter going to do nothing but lie on a sofa and read MB and Mills and Boons all her life? To her credit, she said nothing to me. Then my father's business crashed. The rent was not paid. The car was sold. And I was determined to get myself a better life for my family and for me. I went on to study fashion. And I was at the top of my class. Gone was that average, lazy student. I was driven and I was determined. I once got 2 exam dates mixed up and I prepared for the wrong exam. And I managed to get 100% done in that paper. It was truly Jekyll and Hyde. That's what determination can do. Today, my team at work in fashion includes both genders, but my team leaders, whether it's the cleaning team or the handwork, elderly parents, the usual challenges of getting lunch ready, doing your cooking, cleaning the house, they get to work, they get off their backs, get to work and do a brilliant job so that we can deliver our ensembles on schedule. And I've never thought of it as women's empowerment, more as my amazing gang of girls. And the only way that I can understand to live and work. We know physically that we're not as strong as men, but mentally we're strong, if not stronger. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your words on this interesting topic. I now invite Mrs. Seema Sapru, Principal, The Heritage School, to share her thoughts on the theme Education and Women Livelihood with the eager audience. Mrs. Sapru joined the Heritage School in 2007 and is on the advisory board of various educational organizations. a trained evaluation leader for the International Baccalaureate, and an inspector for accreditation for the CISE. She has been presented with numerous awards, such as the Principal of the Year Award by India Today, Pride of the Nation Award by Mr. Om Birla, and Jewel of Bengal Award in the education sector by IIHM. Mrs. Sapru, we are glad to have you with us, madam. Kindly take the podium.
It's afternoon now. Good afternoon, everyone. And I was cringing in my seat when Kiran was talking about a chemistry teacher. I said, now I am the target here because I am a chemistry teacher. I really tried hard to be a good teacher all my life, and I cooked up stories about all the chemicals and metals and non-metals, everything all my life, and I made chemistry an interesting subject. I hope, Kiran, I was your teacher. But let me tell you, I am old school, and I still believe that men are from Mars and women are from Venus. I still believe that, for the simple reason, because I know that today I am going to not talk about equality. I'm going to talk about equity, because if the same amount of say soup was given to a fox and a crane, I guess if you put the two, if you don't give it in a vase, cylindrical vase to the crane, and in a flat container to a fox, I guess both of them will not be able to have it. So equity is very, very important as far as I am concerned, because I think we women, in terms of education, I would say all young children, we generally like women to be taking care of them, because women are considered to have a maternal instinct and very caring when it comes to education, when it comes to young children, to train them how to socialize, to train them how to hold a pencil, how to start drawing, how to start painting, how to start walking. All that has to be, how to be toilet trained. The basics in life are to be done. The life skills have to be taught by women to a child, irrespective of the gender of the child. So anyone who's here has been generally by and large trained by a woman. So let's say, as far as education is concerned, it's the women who generally are seen. If you see anywhere, whichever school you go to, you will find women in larger numbers than the men. Then there is something called the feminization of agriculture, which we talk about, especially in India. Men being away and going to the urban areas. So it's the women who are left to build a tank, maybe a water tank, or get things organized for the food, farming to be done. But there is one question here, that if she wants a water tank to be made, the land is not in her name. It is either in her husband's name, or in her father-in-law's name, or in her father's name. So if that happens, where is the access? Where is the right for her to actually get things done that she wants to? Even if you are, you have the right, you have the intention to do something as far as sustainability is concerned, you cannot do it because you don't have the right. And then, of course, the last bit, I would like to say that, it's going to be a little political, but I think I can end it with that. I'm sure if the president of one of the countries, either Ukraine or Russia, was a woman, I'm sure the war wouldn't have happened.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We shall now proceed to the panel discussion on the theme, which is to be moderated by Dr. Madhupa Bakshi, Dean, Department of Media Science, the Heritage Academy. Over to Dr. Bakshi, please.
Thank you, Venu. And ma'am, Rupali has to rush, right? But before you rush, I would want to, you made one of the comments that women are Durga.
Didn't like that. I know.
I have a question. Do we have to be Durga?
No, we really don't need to be. We have to exercise our choice. You know, the other day, just last week, I think we just had, we were thinking that as doctors, we kind of really study a lot. We study, I think really study.
But if I
very
know
hard.
correctly, after marriage, you still have the expectation of the mother-in-law to do the same things, if I am guessing
No,
correctly.
unfortunately, I didn't had the pleasure to meet her. I've heard about all the good things that she has done for the society, and she was a great lady. So I worked with her institution. She worked for the blind people. She was a social activist, very, very renowned, Srimati Geeta Basu, and I admire her. And the point is, I was trying to tell you is that as doctors, we do, very seriously, you have to be serious at work as a doctor. And we have to also look after our families, children. We have to do that. And then when I was doing, I wanted to look through the women doctors in Woodlands. I found out there were 82 women doctors in our panel. And then I wanted to meet each one of them and wanted to actually ask each one of them that, what is your me time? Okay, you do good work. You are a doctor. You are looking after families. What is your me? How do you spend time with yourself? How do you really look through stress? You won't believe I collected everybody's. I collected 75 of them. I couldn't collect 7. And we had a party where we actually presented all 75 women on the big screen and talked about their me time. There were almost 12 of them who didn't know what to do. They didn't have a me time. They only work and look after families. Is that the way to live? And they all thanked me later, saying that, Rupali, ma'am, this is just, we didn't even know. Can you imagine? Successful doctors. So there are issues with all of us. I'm saying Durga Act is only because we know how to, we women are capable of doing a lot of things together. My husband says that he does one thing at a time. I do 3 things at a time.
Exactly.
And I'm capable of doing that.
Yeah.
And he keeps on, fighting with me that, how can you do this? You have to put the phone down to talk to me. I said that, no. So that's how we are. So your choice. You want to be a Durga, Saraswati, nothing, yourself. Please go ahead and exercise your choice. That's what I would say.
Okay, ma'am. We have to let you go.
Thank you all very much for having me. I'm very sorry to leave, but I have a pre-scheduled another program which I didn't want to miss. I didn't want to miss you all too. So please excuse me. Thank you so much for having me. But I have promised Madhupa that I'll come one day and actually spend with all of you in the campus.
Yeah, a little more discussion on the health sector would be interesting for us also.
Yes, I would like to talk.
So
thank you all very much for having me. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And before we take the next question, I would like to call Professor Barnali Ray in the green room, please. Can you please join us there? Professor Barnali Ray. Ma'am, please continue.
Yes, that gave me an interesting segue. She said, you have a choice. When you say there's a fox and a crane, you mean to say you are cutting my choices? Because why can't I be a fox or a crane? Because you are telling me physically I'm built that way, or mentally we are programmed that way, and therefore those make us behave that certain way, or we are predestined by. But if you look at gender, it's actually learned. Gender behavior is actually learned. So why can't a girl from her childhood, like the Dangal example, be a sports person and forget about home? Forget about taking care of the children.
So you want me to say something about that?
Yes, ma'am. Your thoughts on
So,
that?
ma'am, I'm talking about equity because I firmly believe that there are, of course, there are researches going on, and people say that the mind of, mind is genderless. Because men and women, physically, they are different, but mind is genderless. That's what I've understood. But there is, I think there's a thick epithelial layer somewhere or the other in men's mind or in women's mind. Something or the other is different, because no matter what you do with a boy, no matter what you do with a girl, there are certain things that they will behave differently. And I agree with you that this is all because of social pressure, that boys are asked to play only with cars and the girls are only asked to play with dolls. That happens, yes. And I would blame the the books that we have, language books, where from the very beginning it has to be a boy who has to come and help out Rapunzel and take her out wherever, or the whether it is Cinderella or whoever, the prince's shoes have to be fitted into poor Cinderella's feet, and so it has to be the prince of some man who has to come and rescue her. So I don't believe in that, but I would still say men and women are different and you cannot equate them. I don't want to be a man.
Obviously, we don't want to be a man.
A man is very happy with a man. And I think we complement each other. Why should we have a competition with them? For what? We're very happy with men around us. I have a son, I have a husband, I have a daughter-in-law, and I'm very happy with all of them. I mean, two men in my life, two very, very important men in my life, and I love both of them. But why is there a competition? I think we're far superior.
No, we don't take a competition. If I Rowan, a question for you, because you talked about when you were talking about like your department has to recognize that women has to come, and you talked about there is a typical stereotypical that women are not assertive, they don't come forward, and that is a typical. That is, if you go to the bigger mass of the women out there, most of them are afraid, as Kiran said, to come forward and do. Now, if you have to tell them to come forward, they will say we are talked about as being aggressive. We are talked about. Now there's another stereotype that you fall into. How do you break the stereotypes?
That is a very difficult question. As I mentioned, we have unconscious bias training in our own organization. I think that helps a lot. It needs to be culturally based. What is true in Australia might not be true in India, might not be true in France. There are probably at the center similarities, but I think there was a lot of discussion about women's role raising children. To me, that's a choice, doing the housework. I know that statistics say no matter what, it's women who end up doing most of the household work. And I did it myself. When I was in France, I was working very long hours and I'd come home quite late at 9 p.m. Then I'd start making dinner for everybody. And I thought, excuse me, but F this, I'm not doing this, forget it. And I said to my husband, okay, I will cook twice a week. You can cook twice a week. My daughter can cook once a week.
Did it work out? Did you like the food?
Not only that, here's the thing. I didn't only say you have to cook twice a week, and he agreed, readily agreed. I just should have asked earlier. But I said, and you have to think of what to cook, and you have to make sure you have the ingredients, because I'm not doing the shopping for you, and I'm not doing all the intellectual input either. You have to do the whole thing, all of it. It took a little getting used to for him, and we had a lot of takeaway during that period of transition. But, you know, that's fine. We were eating and I wasn't doing the cooking. So that was a big step forward for me. So it was my choice. I realized I was accepting this situation, which I didn't like, and I needed to speak up on that occasion. We're not always told it's okay to speak up. I know it's a difficult thing to do. And it would be nice if we don't have to be in that situation. But that situation is not yet. So I think it's a good idea to not just, if you're unhappy with the situation, not just accept it, but think about, how can I improve this?
Okay.
Works for men and women, by the way.
Didier. Yes. You spoke about the women, you mainly traced the women's journey in the opera. We have a typical journey like that here when we look at our, in fact, the Kathakalis and the dances where men were acting women. In our own Purulia Chau, still men do the women part. Though women dance pretty well, we still have that. Having said that, I would be, this is more of interest area because France is known for gender equality. They have a foreign policy which is dubbed as feminine foreign policy. Yes, so therefore I would want to know that how much would you think that France women have got a berth in the culture industry?
It's working. So you mean, if I understood well, how do the women, which place now they have in the cultural industry?
I'm just asking in France,
Yes.
in the culture industry, how equitable is the distribution? Like the women have a leadership position, or the women are participating in the orchestra.
Yeah, no, conductors, it's a very good thing because there are more and more, but this is some very typical job, you know. I can answer the question as well, but let's be more global in the first approach. No, really, you know, I feel in a cultural sector, you know, talent is first in France, you know, and not only in France. This is the basic things, which is good. Then I think that we are engaged in all, let's say, public run cultural institution, you know. The authorities, you know, pushed more women, you know. It's not something secret, you know. They want that there are more women in power. So the result is that through the combination of both talents, you know, because once again, in cultural sector, you need a special talent, you know, not everybody can do it. It's like this in every sector, you know, actually, but probably even more in the cultural sector. So due to these two things, the talent, and when the question is about the public sector, let's say the willingness of authorities to promote women, so it brings to really some sort of equality. We should check, you know, especially on the post of director, etc. I didn't do it, but I have this impression that parity is not still, let's say, the case, but probably it's not bad, 40 to 60, etc. I would like to add something different. When I was, you know, I stayed for a long time through different posting in Central Europe, you know. And I should say that the culture sector, the administrators, most of them are women, you know. It's probably 80%, you know. I remember I was in such a big country as Poland is, you know, in Central Europe, and I spent there more than 4 years, so I have a good sound knowledge, you know, of it. And I should say that if you took the director of, let's say, operas or orchestras or dramatic theater, probably women took over more than 70 to 80% of the posts, you know. This is
that's a great number.
Yeah, it's a great number. So they are very, very active, you know, in this field. I don't know why, you know, this is Europe, but as you know, there are a few parts of Europe, as here as well in Asia. Not everybody is the same, etc. So this is just I wanted to mention. So probably Central Europe is first, you know, in this, and then we are not so bad. And now to your question, yes. There are more and more women as conductors. It was not the case, for example, when I did a lot of years ago my studies, you know, maybe it was 10%, you know. Now it's probably, you know, on a professional level, etc. I would say 20, some 20. and more and more posts are given to them. But in this field, once again, this is the talent which plays the the greatest role. You know, there is no pushing or things like that, in my opinion. Then the question is a psychological one. If you're a conductor, you know, you have in front of you from, let's say, 12 to 200 people, you know, to conduct, to drive. And I remember when I was in the Paris Conservatoire Music Academy, I have a teacher in conducting who used to say, you know, conducting, this is 80% of psychology and 20% of music maximum, which is true. So it means that if you take it for true, if you are a woman, you know, it's not an easy thing, because the orchestra, of course, through the methods I mentioned to you, the blind auditions for recruitment, etc., you have more and more women. But if you take all, let's say, orchestra in the Western classical orchestra, probably the number of men should be over 70 or 75. I remember it was at the moment a very hot debate. It was some, we have no Austrian colleagues in the hall, but even if we have, you know, it's a matter of fact. One of the greatest orchestra in the world is called the Wiener Philharmoniker, the Vienna Philharmonic, probably the top of the top, or among the 5 top orchestras. And it was, and the same applies as for Berlin Philharmonic, which is as well really number 1, number 2, something like that. And it was a sort of policy that no, you know, no woman, it was very difficult to be engaged as a woman. And let's say the sailing, the glass sailing was broken some, I don't remember, maybe 20, 25 years ago. Then women were engaged, you know, etc. And now it's going on. But probably if you look next year, you know, a concert of the Vienna Philharmonic, which usually gives the concert of the New Eve, you know, which is a worldwide broadcast. It's beautiful, you know, play waltzes from Strauss, etc. And look, the number of women probably is not so high. Also, there are women. So back, and to finish on your question, it's true that if you are a woman, especially if you are a young woman conductor, you know, so you are 25, 28, 30, and in front of you, you may have, you know, 70 or 80 males, age from 40 to 60. This is not an easy job, but women have a card to play, you know. So and it can work, and sometimes it works very well. And a good indication, it has been for many years what we call conducting competition, you know. And now a few years ago was created a women's conducting competition, you know, so only devoted. I don't know if it's a good thing or not a good thing, because now it's the risk of the ghettoization, you know, which is another problem. But I think the trend is better and better.
Kiran, yeah, go ahead.
May I? Yeah, okay. No, may I comment on something that we said earlier, where you say there is already a bias. When you have a boy, he's slated to do X, and when there's a girl, she's slated to do Y. To be fair to the men, there are enough men in this room, and we don't want to get into bashing, male bashing, that from my personal experience, things are changing. There are, at least in my life, I see it close by and at work and at home. My partner does the ironing. He will, if he's ironing his clothes, he'll say, should I do yours? And we have enough help. But if the help is late or something, he cooks, and he cooks a far better meal than me. And I cook too some days, and I really struggle with that. But, and I think they are very conscious of the fact that we are very capable to manage it all ourselves, and that they better buck up, because otherwise they'll be left behind. And I think even women on our side, like, I mean, I was very bad at maths, and I take that effort to take 2 hours out in a week to figure out what are my finances like and how is it, because otherwise I really don't want to be dependent on him to do it. And you should be independent. So,
But ma'am, you also mentioned that fashion industry has more women generally.
yes. So in my office, there are a lot of men and women. I mean, they're equal men and women, more or less. But the women, I find, I think it's not biased, but I think they're just driven. Maybe they're led by a woman. And therefore, I keep saying, look, if he can do it, we can do it. And okay, you're not tall enough, I'll get you a ladder. You know, so we are there to help each other. And I think we are the wind beneath each other's wings. So I think that's what, yeah, and I think it drives them, because he said, if boss can do it, then what's the problem? I mean, even my maid's daughter, she had a baby, and also, I have to say, I insist that everyone who has daughters and sons, they have to educate the daughter, otherwise they shouldn't work for me. And daughter too, including the son. And because they're all from the village, and many of them don't. And if they don't have the funds, we pay for it. And my maid's daughter, who's just who was educated and then got married, got married. And I said, look, she might in future need some income too. And she's interested in beauty and makeup. So why don't we put her through a beautician course? And that girl she did that, and she's now had a little baby in the village. She does the eyebrows of the village girls, and she does their makeup on special days, and she runs a home beauty parlor in her village. And I think that's so amazing. You know, it's truly India empowering women.
Thank you so much, Kiran. I think it's already 12:30, so I will open the floor for questions. Before further, I have a lot of questions to ask them, but I'm not. I'll ask. That's my technology. Sorry. I'll ask the students to ask their questions. And if you have somebody coordinating, yes, Agnijita, if you can coordinate. Anybody has a question? Yes, there's. Oh, there she is. She needs a mic.
So good afternoon, everyone. My question is, do you think connecting women with nature, like Mother Nature or Mother Earth, would in any way help in the cause of climate restoration of sustainable tomorrow?
Is it directed to any particular person, or you want anybody?
No, anybody would.
Anybody wants to answer that? Repeat the question.
My question is, do you think connecting women with nature like Mother Earth or Mother Nature would in any way help in the cause of climate restoration of sustainable tomorrow?
Ma'am, if you want to go for it.
So I did speak about that, and I told you that there are lots of things that are being done by women, especially in villages. You see, most of the men are out to the cities, and women are left behind. So the farms are left to the women to do the farming. And every day when they have to line up to get water for their homes, every day when they have to get vegetables, they have to cook, because the men folk are not there. So all that is being in any case done by women. That brings in sustainability, but then it has its own drawbacks. As I said, that there is a problem, there is an access and right which is not given to them. The land that they're tilling, the land that they are farming on is not their land. So decisions cannot be taken by them.
It's typically
you can take them, you can let them farm, you can allow them to do it, but the land is not in their name. So decisions will be taken by the husband, by the father-in-law, by the father, by some man who owns the land, or the zamindar who owns the land. So sustainability, yes, women bring in, but these are the drawbacks.
Next question. Sir, you want to ask a question? Yes. He is Principal Law College, Mr. Chatterjee.
My simple question is, since morning I have noticed the topic is gender equality. Today for a sustainable tomorrow. Is it gender equality when there is a gender inequality? First. Second is, in this dais, women empowerment shows, because in the beginning, there are 5 women and only 1 man. 5 are women. My question is, in India, there are lots of provisions in the constitutions, other laws, and they always speak about the women empowerments. Always empowerments. So my simple question is whether women empowerment at the cost of men or for sustainable development.
Thank you for your observation about the inequality up here on stage. I have to say, in the past 2 weeks, I have been seeing a lot of that inequality. In my entire career, that is an extraordinary thing. The number of times I am the only woman in the room has far outweighed this kind of arrangement. As to the law, I think it is wonderful and so important that laws are put in place to support gender equality. That is crucial. But what is more crucial is the implementation of those laws. It's no good having anti-sexual harassment laws if women are too afraid to speak up because they know they're going to lose their job or be sidelined and not be promoted if they say anything because of the culture in company X or company Y. And it happens in Australia. I'm not pointing the finger at any one country. It happens everywhere. So the implementation is key. It's not just women's empowerment, it's gender equality. So I think to your third point, there is no replacing. I didn't want my husband to replace me in cooking the dinner. I wanted him to share because I was working full time. He was working full time. We didn't have a cook at that time. And it seemed reasonable that we both do the housework, not just me. I think that's equality. That is not replacement. And I think it's not a difficult thing. It's not hard to move in that direction, to share the roles when it suits us, when it works for our lifestyles and the way that we want to operate. Thank you.
So here I would like to add one more thing. This is my own experience. I'd gone to Tanzania to to present a paper there. We had grown mushrooms here in our school. We cultivate mushrooms. So they'd liked the business project and they'd invited me to Tanzania to present the paper. On the way to Tanzania from Dar es Salaam, this is about 200 kilometers away, there's a place called Sega Girls School. Would you believe that there were about 300 girls from the age of 9 to 19 who had become mothers at the age of 9 to 99 by their neighbors, by whoever, class, school, wherever, and wherever they were studying, because they were pregnant and they looked a little different from the other children, they were asked to leave the school, but the boys who were responsible, because they didn't look any different from the others, they continued. So these girls were brought and put in this school, and now they're the ones who look after the entire school. They look after, they have a vegetable garden, they have a farmhouse, they make rotis, they make chapatis, they do everything possible, they cook. And this house is being looked after very well by a couple. So just wanted to tell you that. So there is inequality everywhere.
Thank you, ma'am, for bringing that to life. Sir, we've got students. We'll have to give them a chance. We've got students waiting.
Good afternoon, everybody present here. I am Anvesha Shingha from BMS, from the Heritage Academy, and I have a question for all of you. So is gender equality or women empowerment or equity is a threat to like men in our society, because it is very much prevalent in our Indian society, in our culture? Because men seem to like threatened by the fact that when a woman is doing great, they seem to be like extremely threatened. Like in most cases, we see that. So, and it is very difficult for them to accept that both women and men have to work together to attain equity and also equality. But for women, when we want equity, women have to work way too much to like attain that and to get recognized for that. So like,
Thank you,
what is your
Anisha. We
take?
got your question.
I think, you know, in every field, if you want to change the things, there are two ways. One is evolution, the second is revolution. Usually when it's about revolution, you know, it's short, it's dramatic, and the results, nobody knows, you know, what is going to be. I think that evolution is probably more safe. Evolution, of course, means you start from a point A and you go to B, not too slow, but maybe not too fast, you know, at a reasonable speed, because you have to take into account what the situation is in point A and what you can reasonably change. And I think in this regard, you know, what do everywhere in the world, you know, the public action, you know, the authorities, all this law, you know, which are passed here and there, they help. Maybe, of course, implementation, somebody said implementation is more important than the law itself, which is true, but implementation is the starting point, you know, it's A plus 1, and then the law passing, then A plus 2 plus 3 is the implementation, plus 4 plus 5 is the evolution of the mentalities, you know. So this takes time, you know. If you take the example of Europe, you know, the history of ideas, the culture of the society, etc., etc. It's only an example, you know. It's just because I'm not European-centered, but we have the result. We have seen, because it took place many centuries ago. So it has been a revolution, but maybe most important, it's this long evolution which made us arrive where we stand. We are not in B in Europe. We are somewhere between A and B, A plus blah, 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 blah. So I think this, so to sum up, you know, first it's more a question of evolution. And in this regard, women play a great role, because of course, women will be in their immense majority mothers. And then, you know, if you want to infuse some new ideas, I remember a French psychologist, pediatrist wrote a book, and the title was "Everything is Done Before 6." So probably take advantage of this 6 years.
One more last question, and then we'll wind up. 2. Okay, next one, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jaya Gupta, and I'm the Vice President of National Service Scheme of Heritage Institute of Technology, Kolkata branch. And I'm currently in 3rd year of my college, studying in the field of electronics and communication. My question to all the panelists present here will be that why do women have to have a perfect figure for modeling? Like, all the women are beautiful around the world, right? So are you even making clothes for the rest of the women?
Kiran, this would probably, yes.
Thank you. So you know, our highest selling products are size 14 to 16, which is a large size. And we really don't make size 8, and which 6 and 8 is made to order, because we desire, I mean, we have to look at the real woman. I mean, I look like I'm thin, but I have a belly that's held together by a tummy tucker. So, you know, all of us have issues. We all have, I think that's the way we're made, right? So size 14, 16, 18, 20 is really what sells. And when we walk, in fact, the shoot that I just did was a girl who was a large size, because that's what real women are. And I think the world is waking up to that. So no use making size 6 clothes. You'll have a failed business because there's really not enough people to buy them.
We hope so. We are all different sizes. Next question, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Anushri Jain. I'm currently pursuing my bachelor's in business administration from the Heritage Academy. And my question is, what are the most effective ways to counter the negative stereotypes of feminism, especially in the workplace?
Rowan?
I have a question back at you. What are the negative stereotypes of feminism in your workplace?
I haven't faced that situation yet, but in general, we tend to hear that there is a lot of discrimination between the men and women, especially sometimes in the workplace. Sometimes it depends on the the ratio. The ratio is changing nowadays, but still there are certain stereotypes. So how do we overcome that?
I think between the ages of 0 and 6, as you said, Didier, I think that is the best solution, is tell our children early on, show them not to engage in stereotypes. And that will, you know, help us all in the long term.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes. You know, I've always wondered why they don't teach this at school. Really, Ms. Sapru will be able to answer that. You know, if they could teach this at school, even things like simple things that there's nothing wrong, a man can cry. Why do you say he's like a girl? Why don't be a girl? He can cry, he has feelings and he should cry. And a girl can scream and fight because she's angry. You know, I mean, and I think if we teach it at school, then you feel it's okay, but I don't see any of that. Civics was not civic sense. It was some civics that was of no consequence to my life. You know, I mean, it was who chose that subject, I don't know. So I think she'll be able to guide us.
So I must tell you, we don't just inform the children about it. We have parent orientations where we tell the parents that you have to, you know, they generally in Bengali, they say that the bigger piece of the fish always goes to the boy in the family, and the smaller piece of the fish, or if there's any piece left for the girl, then it's given to the girl in the family. But well, we tell the parents that if you are training your daughter to be a Heriton, to be in our school, she's going to be a tomboyish girl. She's going to be very highly empowered, and she's
That
going
word
to be
tomboyish, not right.
Not right. I agree. It's very, very gender biased, the word. So she's going to be a Heriton and she will behave the way she wants to. But please expect your daughter-in-law to be also like her and accept her. Because in my home, my son cooks and my daughter-in-law eats. And I'm very happy about it.
Thank you so much. The panelists, I would say one word. It's in your hand. The gender equity, the equality that we are talking about, it is for the next generation. I agree with ma'am that the fox and the stork that we have lived through that. We are part of it. But much of it lies in your hand. And as they all pointed out, it's sides from 0 to 6. It is where the psychology is getting created. You guys are the creator of those psychologies. You guys can build it, the men and both the women. Both of you need to walk hand in hand. Thank you.
Thank you all for such an interesting discussion. And it's an honor and privilege for us that you all have given us time in spite of your busy schedules. Now I request Mr. Clayton M. Moses, Coordinator, Student Affairs and International Relations, Heritage Institute of Technology, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Good afternoon, everybody. The road to gender equality remains long and ever shifting, particularly when it comes to the nuanced ways gender intersects with race, class, and sexuality. But today's voices on the stage give us hope that we are headed in the right direction. And in that context, may I thank our panelists, Ms. Rowan Ainsworth, Consul General of Australia, Ms. Didier Tolpain, Consul General of France, Ms. Rupali Basu in absentia, Managing Director, Woodlands Hospital, Ms. Kiran Uttam Ghosh, International Fashion Designer, and our very own Ms. Seema Sapru, for taking us through a journey, not just sensitizing us, but make us more and more aware, not whether it's male or female, or whatever gender we have today, but who we are is what matters. And in this area, I'm reminded, and this particularly I think will be very important. It's a quotation I'd like to end on. Feminism isn't about making women stronger. Women are already strong. It's about changing the way the world perceives that strength. And it's a quotation by G.D. Anderson. I hope Rowan ma'am knows about it, which is a pseudonym for, just a minute, it's Gerald G. Dunn, who is an Australian feminist, writer, and founder of the Australian charity, the Cover Project. This quotation went viral in 2014 on International Women's Day. It was also viral on Women's March in 2016. And I think it is even more relevant today that it is how we look at the issues that matter. Forget implementation. It's a question how we perceive it that really matters. And in this, the challenge today, I feel, and it's a very personal one, is just not walking the talk. We need walking too long. It's about being the talk. Thank you, everyone. And also, I'd like to thank Ms. Madhupa Bakshi for coordinating the entire and moderating the question answer session. And I would be flayed alive if I didn't thank our very own compere, Ms. Venu Behani, for putting the show together. And thanks to all of you for being here. And for a long time, I've heard an audience that has been so receptive by the silence and the quiet of listening to every voice that's been said. But keep in mind, it's not just walking the talk anymore. We've had years and centuries of it. It's time to be the talk. Thank you. God bless you all.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I invite Mrs. Meenakshi Chaudhary, Mr. Prabir Roy, Professor Bashab Chaudhary, and Mr. P.R. Agarwalji, Pradeep Agarwalji, to join us on the stage to present a few photographs which are taken during the event. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you, everybody. And a big round of applause for all our panelists and moderator, ma'am. We shall now play the national anthem of India, followed by the national anthems of France and Australia. Kindly all rise.
जन गण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मागे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे just walk young and free, with golden soil and wealth fertile. Our home is God by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty, rich and rare. History's place, let every stage advance Australia fair. Enjoy from strength and let on sing, advance Australia beneath the radiant southern top, we'll toil with heart and hand to make this home a wealth of us, renowned of all the land. For those who come of combine to advance Australia fair. Enjoy from strength and let us sing, advance Australia
Thank you, everybody. As CEO sir pointed out that there's